All yours, Raghu.
I will start sharing.
Mhm.
Oops, wrong screen. Screen two. Yeah, do you see it?
Yep.
Perfect. Slideshow. Nice. Okay, so today, did you want to do an intro? You're the chief of the Gurukul program, so
Sure, I will do an intro. Uh, there is, I don't think there is much to say about Raghu that has not been said by other people before. But Raghu is the super mentor. That's how I like to call him. He is that one person who has. I ask him a question and I get an answer immediately. He always answers his phone. He's always there to call you, even if you're the one who's like saying that, hey, I need help. And he was one of those first few people who laid out my options when I was not sure about what I want to do in the future. I had a very vague idea, and I remember he gave me 7 ways to go about that. And that was just the starting. And then over the last few months, I had the opportunity to talk to him. He is super helpful. He takes out time from his busy days. I have no idea how to help everybody who reaches out to him, and his advices have always been fruitful for me. I am so excited to hear about this talk because I am excited to learn as well today, to know about everything that is there for careers and business development. And up to you, Raghu.
cool. Thank you.
Also, he's, of course, if you must know that he's one of the board members of Stampiers as well, but that's not everybody knows, but I feel like I should say that. Yes.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Yeah, nice intro. Thank you. But I thought you were going to do an intro of the Gurukul program, but you did an intro of me. But that's also
Oh,
perfect.
that was already done, but I think that would be nice if it comes from you as well, because I feel like I've already spoken
Yeah.
about it.
So this
So,
is probably not the first presentation of Gurukul program. So all the members here are Gurukul members. So welcome back again to the platform. Today we're going to be talking about business development as a alternate career option. Normally for postdocs, a career option or a career path is academic, or that's how it has been. And all other careers have been taught as alternate careers, right? So can you hear me all right? Just want to make a audio check. Yeah.
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've been saying for the past few years, there's no alternate careers. Everything is a career path, right? It depends on what you choose and what you like and what you relate to and what you're good at. So today we're going to talk about business development as an alternative option, not an alternative career path, as another option for career path. So Sohini did an introduction, but my official title is Inspiro Director of Business Development. I have maybe 10 slides after this slide, so I'm going to go quick. If you have any questions in between, feel free to either raise your hands or ask a question or put it in the chat box. Sohini, you can probably see the chat box popping up, right? So you can
Yeah.
just wave me down and then I will stop for
Sure.
answers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's start with the first slide. Ideally, um, first question is what is business development? In very generic terms, it is basically the ideas, the initiatives, the activities, the function that help make a business better, right? So if you are in business development, you are coming up with ideas or initiatives or activities to make the business better. The business could be your own or it could be someone you work for. And while doing this, what you're actually achieving is you're increasing revenues for the particular company. You're looking at growth in terms of business expansion. You're making a smaller business big, or bigger, or and then you're also looking at increasing profitability by building strategic partnerships or relationships with other people, customers or partners or collaborators, etc. And you're making very strategic business decisions. business related decisions, right? So this is a general, very general, generic um, definition if you look it up. So, what skills would one need to do? So, you're doing a postdoc or you're doing a master's and you're looking for a job and you're like, what can I do if I don't want to go into teaching? Business development comes up, and then you say, what would I need to do? What skills would I need to do this, right? So, this picture here, image here, kind of points in multiple directions. As a business development person, you will be involved in innovation, coming up with new ideas, new projects, working with the research team, working with the legal team, working with the marketing team. You'll be managing stuff. Management means project management, people management, money management, right? Your own agenda management, a whole lot of management. Investment in terms of time, money, um, efforts, etc. Analysis skills, which is a lot of stuff you go through when you're doing a PhD, when you're writing up your theses. You have to be good at analysis. So, what does it actually look like in terms of what you would need on a resume? Basically, you would need analytical skills, right? And that you gain very well when you're doing a PhD or your postdoc. You do an experiment, you have to connect the dots, you have to analyze it and come to conclusions. You have to be able to communicate your results, your data, your idea, your hypothesis, your justification. You have to have the skills of negotiation and persuasion. And these are all, if you ask me, these are all life skills, right? So, how do you negotiate? How do you persuade somebody to buy your idea or buy your concept or buy your logic? You'd probably be doing this on a daily basis with your own spouses or your boyfriends or your girlfriends or your children, right? You're negotiating all the time. You're trying to persuade them to understand or get your point of view. You have to be goal focused. It can be open ended, right? So you have to have a mindset of being goal focused. I want to do this by this time and achieve that and close it out. You have to be have you have to have organizational skills, um, business intelligence. What that means again is um, understanding what a business is, some business background, right? Meaning it could be theoretical, it could be practical. Just having an idea of what is important in business, having a business mind. So when you're in academics, you're usually talking about science, you're talking about projects and how it's going and the results and the interpretation. When you're doing the same thing in the business side of things, you want to see how that can convert into a product, how that can benefit something, how that can be used as an application, how that can generate money. Can that become a kit? Can that become a product? Can that become a service, right? So these different perspectives of the same science, but you're looking at it in a different perspective. Research and strategy, that you're all aware of what that is, and self-awareness of what am I, what is my skills, where can I use my skills, how should I change my perspective when I'm talking to somebody, right? So if you are talking about science and you see some person very uncomfortable, um, you have to step back a little and maybe talk bigger picture. You can't go dive deep into science. So if you're talking to a business person, you're talking to a procurement person or a purchasing person, they don't care about the science at that point. They want to know how that helps them. So you have to be aware of the situation, surroundings, and who you're talking to, how you're talking to. These are, I think, some of the skills. This is not a comprehensive list, but I think these are some important skills that will help you get into this field. So if you say business development, so what are the opportunities? Where can I do business development? What are the types of business development, right? So in my mind, I see there are three different types of business development lines. So one is in the biotech industry, two is in the pharma industry, and three is in the academic industry. So you can still stay where you are, right? Academic direction or pharma direction or biotech direction. But the first thing when I hear of biotech or BD opportunities in biotech, I associate it with sales. it's mostly, I think, sales related activities. When you say BD in the pharma side of things, pharma sense of things, it's more like merger and acquisitions, M&A, licensing, looking for partnership, those kind of things. When you look at academic BD, I think it's more like licensing and technology, tech transfer, patenting, those kind of line of activities, right? So I think broadly speaking, these are the three categories where you can go in and try to find BD opportunities. So just turn on my room heater a little bit. So if you look at the responsibility, so what would you be doing here? What would I be doing in these different roles? On the next slide here, I have roles and responsibilities. So if you look at the first column that I had earlier, biotech, sales related activities, it leads more towards gaining business, generating revenue, and growing the company in terms of bringing in revenue. So what would you have to do for that? What would some of the responsibilities be? So basically, you would be looking for more business opportunities, meaning selling to more customers. So now you are an academician. Um, when you become a BD person for a biotech company, all the academics become your customers, right? So now you're looking for lead generation. Lead generation means lead is a person who is a potential customer for you, right? So you have to look for people who could be a potential customer, and that activity is called lead generation. And there are different ways of doing it. So you need to know how to identify new customers. You'd have to attend conferences, meetings. I don't know what's happening in conferences nowadays with this COVID thing, but there's still virtual conferences going on. I'm going to be in a SOT conference all week next week and the week after. They have virtual booths, so I have to be part of it and talk to people, entertain people, etc. So that's going to be part of responsibilities. Business presentations, presenting slides, presenting data, presenting, it could be science side of things, it could be business side of things. You have to present it and make sure the other party understands it and entertain questions, respond to that. You have to look for opportunities, and in a business sense, opportunities means technically a sale. So, for example, um, you're doing an experiment and you need stuff from me. I try to size up the opportunity, meaning I want to know what you need, how much you need, why is it not working, why is it the product or service I provide better for you, put a value to it based on the pricing, etc., and create that as an opportunity. That is called an opportunity. And now I have to keep generating these opportunities and fill a sales funnel or a pipeline at different levels of getting the sale. So that is dealing with opportunities. So understanding, like I said earlier, business intelligence, business acumen plays a role here. You need to know what sales is. You need to know what a sales cycle is. What are the different steps of sales? And then the last part is closing the sale, meaning you complete the transaction, right? So if somebody wants to buy something, they're not just going to call you up and say, "Hey, I want to buy this. Here's your money. Here's give me the product." It's a long run process. End of the day, you'd have to get a purchase order, et cetera, et cetera. So doing that, developing relationship with the customer, and repeating the whole process again. So instead of doing it one-on-one sales, you try to set up a system where you go once and then rest of it takes place automatically. There's a revenue stream coming in, or they help you sell it to the next person, or it just expands from individual sale to a distribution kind of a sale, right? So these would be kind of BD activities from a biotech and sales perspective. But if you look at it in the second category, the pharma category I mentioned, again, here it's identifying business partners, collaborators. There could be roles where you'd have to evaluate technologies or services or skills of the other partner, evaluating assets meaning in a drug discovery biomarker industry. That means looking at targets and identifying targets. For example, say there's a small startup company that has a product. For example, earlier somebody was talking about nanomaterials, or um, so say you came up with a nanomaterial and now you want to sell this to the pharma company. So there will be the BD person in the pharma company who looks at your technology and evaluates what that is and how much worth is it to bring it into our company. Either they could talk about in licensing it, meaning getting a license from you. If you say, I don't want to give it everything to you, I just want to give access to this technology. So you'd have to come up with terms and conditions, that is TNCs, and then you come up with an agreement as to how you're going to access the technology. You can get exclusivity or you can be non-exclusive, right? So there are different ways of looking at it. And then in the process, you're building collaborations with academics or other biotechs or other pharma, and then working together. At the end of the day, if you're a small company, pharma could come and buy you out, or you can go with an merger or an acquisition kind of a situation. So a people or BD team is actually doing all of these responsibilities or parts of these responsibilities, depending on how big the company you're in, right? So that's the role there. And in the third category, I think some of the main responsibilities and roles are very similar to, it overlaps with the other two, where you'd be looking at out licensing. For example, you'd be in the tech transfer office or BD office in an academic institution. You'd be um, you'd be talking to faculty professor who come up with new technologies or techniques or patents. They file patents, they have inventions, they develop an assay. All of that gets filed in the BD office, in the technology transfer office in the academic institution. So the BD people here are looking through that. They try to identify partners, they try to identify people who might want to buy it. They just out license it. So, for example, if you want to be, you want to do a startup. If I want to do a startup, I could go walk down to Worcester, go to UMass Tech Transfer Office, and say, "Hey, do you have some technologies that I can pull out?" And they will have a list of technologies available for licensing out. So I can look through them based on my interest and say, "I'm interested in this technology. I want to develop the product, or I want to commercialize this product," and they will come up with the tech transfer terms and conditions. They'll come up with agreements, and they'll say, okay, I will give this to you till you develop a product. You have to pay me this much of fees. Once you start commercializing, you have to pay me this much fees, yeah, et cetera, right? So all of that is done by the BD people internally at the academic places. Meanwhile, they're also looking for collaborations, helping with partnerships with pharma, with biotech, forming strategic alliances. They could be helping with procurement, buying products from the BD guy in the biotech industry. They could be working on getting some um, drugs, chemicals, or medicine products to pharma or from pharma. So all of these activities are enabled by BD guys. So the reason I'm telling you all of this is some of these roles and responsibilities and activities could have struck a chord with you. Wow, this is interesting. I want to do this. This might be, something that I want to do. I want to try. I've done this in my previous job or during my PhD, during my postdoc. I have done this. It'd be nice to expand on that. So that's the reason I'm putting all this out there. Yeah. Am I going too fast? Is it okay, Soini? Give me a thumbs up. Good. So so these are the roles and responsibilities, right? So how do I do it? This is what it is, but what do I do? The main role is to put all these pieces together, right? So the BD person is putting all these pieces, all the skill sets together. So like I said earlier, you might have to analyze a customer situation, customer's position in terms of what are they doing, what methods are they using. If you're in sales and you're trying to sell something, an assay or a product, um, You have to ask them questions about what they're currently using, what are the problems they're facing, why do they need an alternative product or a service, why do they need you in the first place, right? All of this are customer analysis. You need to understand the situation. You have to keep looking for new customers. You have to interact with the existing customers. Make sure, because you're looking for new customers, you can't drop the existing customers. You have to maintain that relationship. You have to identify new channels of how you can present your products. Yeah, you have to do a little bit of marketing. You have to do a little bit of communication. You have to see how you can grow your sales and find new strategies. You have to come up with new ways of presenting yourself and new ways of identifying applications for your products or your services, right? So, for example, you might be, as a customer, you might be in your lab thinking, okay, I need X, Y, and Z, but you're looking only in one perspective. As a BD person, you can come in and put in a different perspective on it, and then they realize the value of your product or your service, right? So all of this, putting all these pieces together, knowing the science behind what you're selling, knowing the technology behind what you're selling, coming up with ideas for new product development, right? All of this will help you become a successful business development person. So when I'm doing this, I want to give an example of maybe I'll do it in the next slide. So how do I become one, right? So what should I do to become or go into the BD role? Um, that's on this slide. So the part on the left side is grayed out because this is from the previous slide. These are the skills that I said you need, right? So what do you do with the skills? You need to have skills, develop these skills, and develop some business acumen, right? Like I said earlier, understand what is sales, what is business, what what are the different steps or stages of this. You need to understand that part. You have to then, once you have all these skills, you create a resume, format into the right format, which is very, very important. And we have Tracy, who does a lot of these presentations about how you present yourself, how you do informational interviews, how do you do your resume, how do you do your LinkedIn profiles, etc. All of that. That's another important part. If you don't know how to present yourself, you don't know how to sell yourself, you can't go and sell something else, right? So it becomes key to learn how to do that for yourself. Then you highlight your business skills. So I know that being a postdoc, being a academician, you will not have all these business skills, right? You will not have business experience, but you have to highlight what you have in terms of, in your resume. You can talk about, put in some words that you can relate to in terms of business, right? And how you would you can show initiative saying, I have read these sales books, I've read this business development books, I've taken these courses, right? So you can show that you have a motivation, you have taken initiative to move into this career, right? So that is what will give them the faith that, okay, this person is trying. Even, not everybody can have experience when you come directly from the lab, but they have this innate character or ability, and they're making an effort to build on. And then how do you gain some experience? You can make friends, first of all, with the BD people that come to your lab, people who are trying to sell you stuff. Learn the mannerisms, learn how they talk. If they're okay with it, shadow them, walk with them, walk a mile in their shoe, like they say, right? So the best way to do that is, hey, say, you know what, I have a recommendation for you. I think this colleague of mine would love your product or your service, right? So make a recommendation, make a referral. So then they'll be happy to take you with them. And then you stand there and wait and see how they pitch the product, right? How they pitch their service. So now you actually know what their job is. You walked 10 steps in their shoes now. So do that multiple times and see what it takes to be in that role. Is that something for you? You get free experience, right? So I would say that's the experience you need to gain before you make up your mind. And then um, having some idea and inclination towards inventions, or you have patents, or you're creative, or you can think about products out of an application, right? So these are mindset things that you'd have to start thinking along the lines of, and this will kind of help you when you're developing your career or getting into business development. So the question is, I told you about all the skills and how do I become one and all of that. So you might have a question. So how did I get there? Raghu, how did Raghu do the transition, right? So the next slide gives a little background on what I did, right? So how did I get there? My PhD was in animal sciences, and you'd think, oh, animal sciences, what do I do with animal sciences in the future, or plant sciences? So I did animal sciences, Hyderabad, India, PhD. I came here for a postdoc, and that was a long postdoc, 7 years of postdoc, right? Did it in two different universities. But this is where, at the second postdoc, Yale, is where I actually got exposed to a lot of biotech and entrepreneurship and stuff like that. Because my boss was an entrepreneur. He had started up a couple of companies. So I got that bug from that lab, and and he was pretty innovative at that point. He encouraged us to discover new things, identify, invent things and stuff like that. We were looking at new genes. In those days, you could actually do a screen, identify new genes, identify new mRNAs, isoforms, and actually file them as your invention, your discovery on databases, right? So if you look up my name on PubMed or NuclearMed, you'll find a couple of those genes isoforms in my name right there. So that kind of started, the need to be out there and find new things and develop products, identify, invent, patent, etc. So while I was doing my postdoc, I also started taking some courses on the side, because you're focused on certain things, you're going in one direction, you need additional skills. So I took some computer courses, programming, database management, etc. And when I was postdocing, that was the time when bioinformatics was booming. So I wanted to go into bioinformatics, but I didn't have the guts to do it. I just took the courses, I stayed my course, I was doing postdoc, but then I got an opportunity to do a side job, um, looking at database management. I went into an eye clinic where they needed to develop a program. They had they would enter data from the eye test, and then it would spit out the calculations for glasses and all of that. So they had a management database that they had to manage. So I went in evening hours after postdoc, created the database, populate the database, troubleshoot the database, pretty much work as a database management guy in that company. It was amazing, nice part-time job. So I'm doing molecular biology during day and database management in the afternoon, or in the evening, or an hour before I go into postdoc lab. So stuff like that. And then side interest, it'll be nice if you have a little, idea of how money works. I'm sure everybody knows how money works, but how do you save money? How do you, invest money? And what are people doing? Different approaches to invest, save, grow, all of that. That definitely helps. Working with inventions, like I said earlier, I was part of co-inventor of whole genome amplification technology at the biotech company that I first worked on. I was interested in startups. Like I said, my boss had startups, and I myself had a couple ideas that I wanted to take into startups. Um, I spent 4 years as a biotech scientist, developing assays and technologies. So all of this put me into a mindset of, I've done the science, I know how the science works. Now I've developed this application. Now I want to take this application and enable others to use this technology, use this science. So that's the mindset I got into. And then when I got into this uh, company, biotech company as a scientist, I made friends with the marketing people, the BD people, the finance people, right? I would go sit in their office, spend some time, and ask them, how can I become a BD guy, right? Do I need an MBA? And they're like, no, you don't need an MBA. You need to know stuff. So that's how I started thinking. And then um, end of the day, when I got an opportunity, I took the risk and jumped. Right. So, like I said, first time I wanted to go into bioinformatics, I didn't take the risk. I didn't jump in. So, second time when an opportunity came to get into business development, I jumped at that opportunity. So, I think taking risks is also equally important there. So, what are some of the challenges of doing this, right? So, like I said, it was a risk that I thought I was taking. Usually, you feel that when you're not confident, right? Not confident. Will I be able to do it? Will I be successful or not? What if I fail? All of this is going to be in your mind, but you have to have that confidence. You have to build that self confidence, and you can get that by interacting with people, talking to mentors, reach out, talk to people who have done this before. Some of the things I put here as challenges, I just want to talk a little bit about that, because we're all used to thinking academic, right? Scientist and science, and it has got a lot of value, and you're big shots, and you're thinking science, and then all of a sudden you're the sales guy, right? So how do you get out of that mindset? That is really important. And you also have to realize when you do this transition, you may not go back to the lab. You are not getting a security blanket of going sitting in your little corner in the desk and doing your experiment, pipetting and looking at stuff, and that's not going to be there, right? You're out there in front of people, talking to people, making things happen. You could sometimes feel you're not a scientist anymore. Did I lose my value? Did I make a mistake? When you go talk to customers, they might say, no, we don't need it. We have something better. So you have to face rejections on a regular basis. How do you deal with rejections, right? How do you deal with no? That is an important skill. You will face this 8 out of 10 times. You'll get no. Maybe 1 or 2 times out of 10, you'll get a yes, right? So you have to adjust your attitude to be able to face rejection, and how do you get over that, right? Avoidance, I put it out there. What that means is, remember when you're postdocs and you're in the lab and you see a sales guy walking down the hall and you run and hide in the cafeteria because you don't want to talk to them because that guy is coming to sell you something, right? So you'd be the person coming in and people will be running away from you. So that's, again, how do you deal with that? Or you have friends saying, oh, this guy, oh, Raghu is the sales guy. No, right? So I don't want to be called the sales guy because I know my value, but you have to be aware that you could get that tag, right? So you have a PhD, you have postdoc, you have experience, you have all of this. You are who you are. You're good at what you do. Now you're adding another skill set, right? You're adding another skill set, you're adding another talent, and now you're on your own. You might think, okay, I may not be able to go back to academics, but I do have a couple examples of friends who actually went into sales for 10 years and went back into academics, went back into pharma as a scientist, leading clinical diagnostic groups, right? So there is a way back in, but it's not the majority, right? So again, it depends on your mindset, what you're comfortable in. If you really think after doing this for a few years, I want to go back into science, you can go back into science. So there's a way to get back in. So all of these are things that you have to be aware that are challenges, right? Nothing is easy, jump in and do it. But if you look at this and say, I don't care about that, I don't care about that, I don't care about that. Yeah, I can deal with this, I can deal with this. Um, then you're ready, right? So you don't have to think too hard to consider this as a career option. Next, so I told you what are the challenges, what you stand to lose. I also want to tell you what do I win, right? The other side of the coin. Oh, it's the nice part. In fact, I didn't have the challenges slide at all because I am an optimist. I always want to look at the bright side of things. But then I said, no, I have to prep you, let you know there's things that could be considered challenges. So what do I win? what do I win? You win the sense of contributing to a bigger cause, right? So a lot of times when people ask me, Raghu, what do you do? I say, I save lives. That's the bigger picture. So then they say, how do you save lives? I do business development for a company, right, that offers services that helps pharma and biotech develop drugs faster, sooner, with less expense, less cost, and you bring the drugs faster to clinic and make sure the drug works and it's safe. So basically, these drugs come out faster, cheaper, and helps the public, helps people, helps save lives. So basically, end of the day, I'm helping save lives, right? So you have a bigger mindset. You see what you're contributing to the bigger picture. Um, I think that really helps go in this direction. If you look at the smaller wins there, if you're working for a small company, you're helping growing a business. You're helping, you're learning the business aspect of it. So if you are an entrepreneur or you have that kind of a mindset, you can start your own business, right? So that those three things are in reverse order if you want to start a business, right? So ideally you think you start a business, learn how to do it, and then grow the business. But when you go into a company as a BD guy, it's the reverse process. You're jumping into a big business, you're growing the business. While you're doing that, you're learning how the business runs. If it's a small organization, you have visibility into every steps from marketing to sales to finance to R&D to product development, everything, tech transfer. So you learn exactly how a business runs. And then now you're ready to start your own business if you want. In the process, you're also building a network, you're expanding your contact list. So that is really important for you going forward. You can also look at it as you're making an impact in your field. So, so if you are working in a particular field, I'll go back to the nanoparticle example that somebody mentioned earlier. So you develop this product or this concept, and now you want to make an impact with that technology in the field, right? So you bring that out to the field, you're selling the idea of that, and then people can develop on top of that and make it better, develop drugs faster, medicines faster, or services faster. And in turn, you're making an impact in the community, right? You're enabling a healthier population, healthier lifestyle, happier lifestyle overall. And the other nice part I think about BD is I never get bored because every day is a new day, new customer, new challenge, new project. So it never gets boring and it's not monotonous. Like when you're in the lab, you're getting up going, oh, I got to do the same thing again. It's never like that. Right. So that's another part I enjoyed going into BD and doing. So I think all of these are wins. But then if you want to look at, so what does this translate into really money? Because end of the day, you need money. And it's never wrong to say, I want to take this job for the money, because that is a motivation, right? It's not greed. It is you doing work and you're getting paid for it. And what I learned or what I observed is compared to academics, definitely a better lifestyle, definitely a better package in terms of compensation. So that's in my next slide here. Also, when get a nice compensation package. Usually, when you're in academics or in a scientific position, you get a salary, maybe a bonus, year-end bonus, right? So here, compensation packages would include a lot of things. Um, One of the main things would be a commission if you're in a sales-related positions where it becomes a percentage of your annual package, and the bonus and commissions are a percentage of your salary base pay. A lot of companies, even for scientific positions, offer stock options nowadays. So that's not new. But then again, there's the stock options. Being in a field based position, you get certain perks. You might get a company car. You might get an allowance to lease a car, to buy a car, rent a car. You get the perks of traveling if you like traveling. You make friends, you get time to spend time with friends. When I was traveling a lot in my first and second BD job, everywhere I went, I would make sure I reach out to a friend before I go because I needed some familiar face. I would go there, find the friends, have lunch with them, dinner with them, right? And then go along with business. So expanding your network and getting time to spend time with friends. And then the nice part is if it's a business conversation, you get all of this gets reimbursed. A lot of it, you get an expense account. Some companies would give you a credit card that you can use and you just expense it out. You get the benefit of having a home office. They pay for internet and they pay for um, the office setup and all of that. Your printer, your computer, everything gets paid for. So it's a nice little perk. uh, Working in BD, working in the field, especially in the biotech and pharma industry. It may not be the case in academic because they try to follow the same guidelines like another academic job. I also had that experience of working BD in an academic institution. I didn't see any of these additional perks there. You have some perks, but it's slightly different. And then the reason I put that little red car up there is because, believe it or not, I got that car working for the company, right? So part of the perk, they pay for the car, right? So they said you can have any car you want, we'll pay for it. I went and bought this fancy car. I said once in a lifetime, why not? Have fun. Went and got this little red sporty car. They paid it off before I got out of the company. It was fully paid off, free car, right? So get to live your life also in a different track. So that I think was the last slide. I will stop here and take any questions.
Yeah.
Hi, I have a question. Um, it was a great talk. I thought it was really interesting, especially the part where you're talking about like when people think about business development, we always try to see as just industry sales, but also like you can move into like university tech transfer setup. You can move into like a bigger company. We're trying to source like startups or like I don't know technologies from academic or research environment and all that are also part of like business development activities. So that's the thing that I always thought about. Like as internationals, everyone's trying to move into bigger companies because of all the sponsorship and other issues surrounding that. So within a bigger company, they have like different arms, right? Like where they're doing more of working with the on the like the sourcing side with academics and startups.
Mm.
So what do you call those positions, and how as a PhD with like maybe some interest in startup activities and some experience and exposure, what are the kind of roles that you move into in these large companies, and what are the type of things you do there?
So if I get you right, the question right. So yeah, you're looking at, you said sourcing the type of technologies or assets, right? That
Right, right,
usually falls into the category that I put in the middle, the pharma category,
right,
right?
sure,
So these groups would either be called innovation groups, alliance management groups, external sourcing groups. So those are the three little phrases you can jot down and look
right,
for. And
right,
within this, you'll have people who are assigned different things. There'll be a group which looks only for leads in terms of targets. And, targets meaning it could be a genetic target, it could be a protein target, RNA target, or target could also mean a drug, a chemical that actually
right,
it's an agent that enables, inhibits, or enables function of a certain gene, right? So that
right,
can be brought in for drug development.
right,
Or there'll also be an academic alliance management group, which will be talking to, partnering with academic labs, looking for
right,
people, professors who have technologies like what you have in your lab or your experience,
right,
right? For
right,
materials or assays, and then they want to bring it in. Or
right,
if you're a small biotech company and you're developing a product, and there's a pharma company that might look at you and say, "Oh, we want to acquire this company because we could
Okay.
use their technology before somebody else buys them," right? So,
Right.
so those are the three little phrases you can use to look for it. And there are directors of innovation and external resourcing, sourcing, alliance management that you can reach out to.
Right. Right. And is it like normal to hire people fresh out of like
Oh
grad,
yeah.
like a
Yeah.
PhD
So
program into these
yeah,
roles?
yeah, it is not normal. It is possible, right?
Okay.
So it's so that's where you
Course.
have
Yeah.
to polish up your resume and show that you are the right candidate, even though you're new, you're fresh from academia. You
Right.
are the right person, or you can do it.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
Hi, Raghu, Sanchari here.
Hi, Sanjay.
Thanks, thanks for the wonderful talk. I want to know that if outside the, I mean, now of course we have the lockdown, but if we consider otherwise, how much travel is involved, like outside your city, or how
Yeah,
much?
that's a good question. I think that's one of the major things that come into mind, especially when you are uh, when you have a family to take care of at home.
Yeah.
And it's a bigger question usually for female researchers, female candidates than male candidates. Um, and it is a very subjective answer there. So, say for example, I work for a company and they are a big company and they have multiple people in that role, sales role covering a certain territory or region. It goes by assigned territory, right? So, for example, when I worked at one company, I had all of US that I could have traveled to, had to travel to, and that was my first position in the field. So in the first 2 years, I traveled 36 out of 50 states. I loved it.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to do it. So my refrigerator has magnets from all over the states, different places. But then went to the next job that was just eastern US, and then they changed the territory to northeast, which means just 5 or 6 states. So it depends on how they assign the territories and roles. And then
Okay.
it would also depend on how important is it to you to be in front of the customer. Some things you don't have to be in front of the customer. You can do it
Hmm.
online, on a phone, on web chat. Nowadays it has become very popular. I don't know how many people will actually go back to traveling, but like I
Okay.
said, it is a subjective thing, and that is one of the first things you should ask if you're interviewing for a BD role.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, you're
Hey,
welcome.
Raghu,
Hi.
hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chinna raised his hand. Let me go there, and if you don't mind, Vilas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi. My question is, I come across similar career talk, and one of the attractive position was patent, patent officer kind of
Mhm.
job. I think maybe it suits maybe less resistance path for me, because I uh, filed couple of patents, and we write papers as researchers. And so how difficult, how different it is than business development?
Like I said, the roles and responsibilities are different. So you can define business development in different ways based on the roles and responsibilities, right? So you are at the end of the day enabling my first definition slide, right? Where you're trying to grow the business, you're trying to enable, do activities that help make a business better. You're bringing in initiatives and ideas. So all of that is happening in your role. So you're doing that. So it depends on what your actual role is, what you're comfortable doing. There's nothing wrong in doing that, right?
Yeah.
So the so if you're comfortable doing that, that would be a good place to start. And then you
Yeah.
overcome the other challenges that I put on my challenges slide, and then you
Yeah.
can probably jump into the next least path of resistance role.
My question there, like sub question there, do I need to do any other course in law or related fields to be a kind of patent officer?
Yeah, that's a good question. See, when you're a patent officer, I don't think you're practicing law, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think a degree in law is necessary, but you can take some courses with patent. What are the important things you need to know? How do you protect the patent? How do you file for it? Those kind of things might be helpful for you
Okay.
more than understanding the law, right? The
Okay.
processes around patents and how do you protect it and keep it
And
safe.
do you have anybody in these Gurukul batches who has gone into those careers so that I can just ask them if they?
You can check on, we can have people comment on the post on Gurukul
Oh,
and then pick it
okay.
up from there. I know one person who actually went that direction is Ananda, who's one of the founders of the organization. So we can
Okay.
start from there.
Okay. Thank you.
Vilas?
Yeah. Hi, Raghu. Thanks for the great talk. So I just want to ask you, so as a BD officer or the role of BD, does that also involve interactions with like investors or bringing in investments for the company as well?
Good question. Yeah. So so when you're with the BD in a small company,
Mm-hmm.
there's more opportunities for that. Um, and it also depends on how the organization is run, right? And what they expect from you. If you can really
Okay.
bring in an investor to the management, to the CEO, CTO, they will be appreciative of it. And then that is a career path you can choose to go as you go into it. So there'll be BD roles. Uh, One of the things that I didn't probably mention in the roles and responsibilities is bringing in investments, right? So that'll be working with venture capital people, right? You
Yeah.
have that relationship you're building. That is part of the second category I had in pharma. We're talking mergers, acquisitions, and evaluating assets. So
Yeah.
you would be interacting with the investment people there if you're in those roles.
No, I'm
But you're
asking
also, if
because
you're in a startup, you would
yeah,
have to do it yourself, where
yeah.
you are raising funds for your own company. Yeah,
Yeah, so
and
I'm
I've been.
asking you because I work for a small startup and we are actually looking for investors who can come in and help us with something. So we had an
Mm-hmm.
investor from when Vancouver, Canada, but after this COVID, I mean that has kind of gone down. So we are looking for newer investors to come up with some amount that we are looking for, but I mean, we are trying to contact a few, this indie bio accelerator that we tried to contact, but they haven't come up with some concrete answer or anything. So we are still looking out. So I was just thinking, if you have any contacts that you can give me or something like that, it would be great.
Yeah. So how much do you need?
So we are looking at around 1 million, not more, not too much, because we don't want like too much pressure from the investors, because that's what happens
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
they lend you a lot of money, right? So they will
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
after you, they'll be on your back all the time. So we
Yeah.
don't want
Yeah.
that to happen. But yeah, I mean, 500 to 1 million is what
So
the
are
CEO.
you in a BD role already, Vilas?
No, 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 no. So I'm still I'm as a research associate.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm still a research associate, and
So
it's a small
so
company, but we are getting some attention because we are working on that RNA therapeutics platform, and suddenly now RNA is like the big thing, because the Moderna and the vaccines that have come up, and we also have done something for COVID vaccine as well. So we with the AI that we have designed some antisense drugs that we are
yeah.
looking to
Yeah.
try with a viral lab that is getting ready here. So we are looking in that direction, but right now it's like my project is basically in oncology. So that's
Yeah.
what I am looking at. But
So what you could potentially do is for your BD guy, right? Build that
mhm,
relationship with the BD person. If you are interested in this direction, build that
yeah,
relationship with the actual BD person there and try to identify potential leads for them, connections for them. It could be anywhere. If you're looking for, 500 to $1 million, you're looking at individual investors, friends, family, or angel investors, like individual persons who have money, right, and smaller
mm,
organizations. So if you see venture capital or you see some investment fund out there who's talking about how they are developing a portfolio and stuff like that, you can find my data mine these information and start feeding it to your BD guy, right?
Okay.
And then they start seeing that you're interested in this, right? So your goal may not be you want to raise the $1 million yourself, but you want to give him leads so they can do it. And since
Okay.
you gave them the lead, they will keep you in the loop when they talk about it,
Okay.
right? So that's a good way for you to learn and get into this field.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Raghu, there were a few there were a few questions by somebody who had to leave, but I'll just ask the questions on her behalf. The first question was, how do you keep yourself updated technically when you do BD? That was
Yeah, so that is part of your learning, right? That's a part of your research and strategy, one of the roles responsibilities I had on the slide. So you are immersed in what science you are doing and how that will help others. Obviously, your 80% of your focus is going to be on that. But there's a small percentage that you have to keep up with the new technologies. And fortunately or unfortunately, you will be pulled into one narrow lane, like your research project, right? So you're not going to be reading about every cancer drug that is out there. If you're doing research in cancer, you'll be probably looking at one pathway, right? The mechanism of action in that pathway. What are the drugs involved? What are the inhibitors? What are the agonists, antagonists, etc. In that pathway. But if there's a crosstalk between another pathway, you'll probably get into that too.
right.
Similarly, while you're doing BD, you want to keep track of what your area of interest is and how you can help that particular field and just keep seeing what's happening in that area. And you have to spend some time consciously doing it.
Right.
Mm.
The next two questions are, how time intensive is this role? In that, does work spill into the weekends? And the next one is, what is the personality match for BD? How can I figure out if I can be a good fit?
Okay, so you saw me talking. I'll answer the second question first. You saw me talking. If you feel like you're my kind of a personality, you'll be good at it. So if you tell your friends, hey, I'm planning to go to BD, right? Some friend who's a really good friend, if you say, I want to go into BD, I want to go to a field-based position, if they say, yeah, that role will suit you, that means you are the right type of personality, right?
Right.
So do a gut check, do a check within your friends, within your family. You feel that you're like all the challenges I put out there, you're a person who doesn't care about those challenges. You're the right type of person. Okay? You're the If you see the wins that I put out there and say, oh, I like these wins. I'm willing to put in the work to get these wins. You're the type of personality, right? So that's an easy answer. And the first question was what?
How time intensive is this role?
Yeah,
Does
how
work
time intensive? It's your job, right? You're going to do it how well you want to do it. So how time intensive is a research position? Your mind is thinking constantly, no matter what, right? 24/7. Every job is a 24/7 job in your head. But how do you prioritize it? Where do you draw the line? And even after you draw the line, there might be an urgent need that you have to do something on a weekend. And you will do it if you enjoy doing it, right? And you have to do it, you do it. But I don't think um, you would look at it that way, because if you're enjoying it and you're seeing the benefits coming out of it, you'll be part of it. You'll be doing it, right? So I wouldn't say it's a time intensive or challenging type of a role that way, because every job is a job. But how much you enjoy it and how much you hate it will define the intensity part of it, right? So that's how it is. But looking at do you have to work in the weekends and stuff? Um, yes and no. You will not be required to go into work, log into a computer, and do stuff just like any other biotech company job. But if you're going for a conference, if you're going for a meeting, you might be required to travel on the weekend. Get to the location for a Monday morning meeting, you have to go on Sunday. So are you going to look at it as I'm losing my Sunday, or are you going to go look at it as, oh, I'm going to have fun on Sunday and then be ready for Monday, right? But again, if you have a family, it's going to pull you down a little bit, or you'll have to prioritize your activity. You'll have to probably get up early at 3 o'clock in the morning to get there. So do you give up your previous night or you give up your next day morning, right? So you will be able to do those. It'll be in your hands to do it, but you have to prioritize.
Right. Okay, we have another question, which is how different is a BD role from MSL? Is there possibilities to switch role over time if a person is more interested in translational research-based work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say it kind of goes in a parallel, but the main difference is the MSLs are not dealing with any money or any transaction, right? So they're focusing on science, they're focusing on use, they're focusing on promoting the project, they're focusing on collaborative interactions with the end user. For example, if you're an MSL for a pharma company, you have to be a scientist well enough who knows the effects of the drug. You can understand what the drug does, right? They, I think, like a person with a doctor background, a medical background, to be able to be an MSL. Nowadays, they've moved away from bringing in PhDs because PhDs may not think in that drug mechanism kind of way how doctors think, right, in treatments. And the criteria they use to look at analyzing data is different. How a doctor looks at something versus a PhD person looks at something. So they want you to be able to relate to an MD doctor, a doctor who sees patients, who treats patients, who uses their drugs, who could be a potential user of their drugs, and how you go and provide them the data, show them data, and convince them that your drug could be the better alternative for this subset of customers. You also help them understand who is that subpopulation of people who respond better than you, the current drug, right? So patient stratification, all of that. So it's very different, but your role may not include selling, quote unquote, selling financial transactions, saying, okay, now you're looking to buy this drug, but this is going to cost you this much or that, right? So that part is not there in an MSL responsibility.
Okay.
So you could potentially be a BD and transition into an MSL, I'm thinking, but the reverse might be a little more difficult because you went into an MSL, you're still closely relating to a scientific role. And are you comfortable reaching into somebody's pocket and asking for their money? So that is the transition part. So if you're comfortable doing that, then you can present yourself as, okay, I have all the other requirements. Now I'm comfortable doing the business side, then you can transition into BD. So it's not one or the other.
Okay.
Yeah, somebody else raised their hands.
Yes. And then there's also another question in the chat box. So
Yeah, Neeraj raised his hand, I think.
Yeah, nice talk, Raghu. I have a question that suppose a person like me or somebody else having no experience of any kind of this uh, previous experience of the bidding BD kind of things, dealing with any things, but making the CV in such a way that getting in any company as a BD. So do the company provide any kind of training after that, or
Mm, um, good question. If it is a big company, large company, usually they have sales training sessions.
right,
So
right?
when you get into the company, they will train you on the products they have, on the assays they have, whatever they're selling. They'll train you on the scientific side of it for you to know what it is so you can sell it better. But they're not going to train you on how to sell.
Okay,
The fundamentals of selling, they will not ideally train you. They'll train you how to sell their product or their technology, their offerings. Sometimes part of the sales trainings will also have quote unquote actual sales trainings as to what approaches should you use. For example, um, there are, where's my box I had around here? So there are different ways of selling. One of them is challenger sale. It's an approach to selling,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So there's another called spin selling. So there are different ways, different books. So if the company subscribes to a certain principle or the trend, you can spin it and make sure everybody's on the same page. So that is possible. In small companies, they may not afford to do that. So it is tough to get that training in smaller companies, right? So
So how, I mean, that this, because I think that there should be some goal to meet, right? In that
yeah,
kind of, so if not training and not meeting the goal, then how much is this kind of stressful life in that?
it is going to be very stressful if you don't think you can do it. There's no doubt about it, right? That's where the mindset comes into picture. You should have the self confidence that you can do it, right? And you should have the skill sets to be able to do it. So that's where this resume part and the skills part that I talked to you about, reading books, developing those knowledge, business knowledge, intelligence, acumen. What does this word mean? What should I do? What are the different steps of doing it? And also your mindset, you change from saying, say, um, your salary is going to be broken into commission and base pay and bonus. So you might earn less in base pay. You have to be able to manage with the lesser base pay, but you have the potential of making more bonus, so you'll be motivated to hit your targets, hit your goals to bring in more commission,
I see.
right?
Yeah.
So it's you have to prepare your mind and your attitude and your skill set to match what you're
Right. 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 Yeah. Thank you.
doing. Mhm.
Okay, we have two more questions, and I think then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
Unless we have other questions, but also just for the sake of time. But
Yeah.
need to ask, what are the non-field roles in BD area?
Non-field roles are all of those alliance management roles that I talked about. Tech transfer roles,
Mhm.
um, identifying leads, sourcing, insourcing, outsourcing. Those are all non-field roles. Only the fee sales-based roles are mostly field-based because you have to go looking for customers, interacting with customers and stuff. So in a overall generic statement, that's how I would categorize that.
Okay. And then the last question we have in the chat box is, would you say it's easier to transition into entrepreneurship or having your own venture for some time?
I think that is the best case scenario to do, because if you want to start a business, you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to know how a business works, right? So so that's the best way to go about it, because now as a BD in a smaller company, you see different aspects of it. Like I was saying earlier, right? You have
Right.
visibility of how marketing works, you have visibility of how the product development works, you know how to package a product, you know how to sell a product, you know how to find the right customer. You're learning all the different aspects of business. And now when you start your business, you're already ahead, right?
Right.
So, and you've made contacts and you made your network, you researched venture people, investment people, all of that. So it makes it easier, definitely.
Okay. Um, I don't see any more questions, but
Okay.
before, oh, there is a
I
question.
have
Yeah.
a small question. So I
Somebody
was
also
thinking,
mentioned inside sales leads might be also non-field. Yes, that is correct. If you're an inside salesperson, that means you're sitting at home or office looking for lead generations and answering questions from your computer. Yeah, true.
so I have a
And
question. Now I have, as I said, two commercialization funds coming into two of the ideas we submitted. In part of those funding, we need to hire somebody as business consultants, and at later stage we can also hire a CEO.
Mhm.
Both of them are not costing to our own grant. So from these two persons, how can I exploit maximum benefit? Because I will be working closely with them to develop our business idea into, investor ready startup. So
Yeah.
now I
So
have a
what are the two positions, CEO and?
business consultant, but he is supposed to
Okay.
give us a business plan.
Development. Yeah. So the the role for these two people, you know, the role for BD, I explained in multiple slides here, what the person's role is. That person will be helping the CEO, and CEO has to make sure that there is enough money for you to do your work. I think that is the primary responsibility of a CEO. He has to make sure the company is open, the lights are on, and whatever it takes to make that happen. It could be meeting these investors, trying to bring in money, making sure the money is spent in the right way, in the right approach, um, making sure you have the right people with the right background to do the job that they need to do, and aligns with your vision and your mission, right? So that is very important. As a scientific founder, if you have a certain vision and a mission for your technology, you need to find a CEO who has the business sense, who also aligns with your mission. So you have to be on the same page.
Yeah.
So that's what you need to do with the CEO and the BD. The BD, you just encourage them, give them the freedom to bring in more business, find the right partners, while the CEO makes sure the light is on.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you all. I think with that, if there's no more questions,
Yeah,
I'd like to
thank you,
thank the
Raghu.
opportunity to talk to you all guys, and feel free to reach out to me whenever, and I'll be happy to help.
Thank you.
Sony?
Raghu definitely will. But thank you, Raghu, for laying out such a clear and a broad overview about everything that falls under business development. It's nice to see everything in one presentation and to be aware of all the different opportunities. And there are lots of thank you and lots of great talks in the chat box. Just before, because Chinna talked about it, there was a career track talk by Anandoda on tech transfer. So if any of you are interested in viewing that, please send an email to the Gurukul email and we'll share the link for that
Thank you. Thank you.
talk with you all. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Very much. Thanks. I had fun doing this.
Yeah.
Good luck for all of you, and feel free to reach out. Yeah. Cheers.
All right.
Okay.
Bye, Raghu. Bye,
Bye.
Bye.
everybody.
Take care.